Hello, and welcome to this third video in our beginner violin series. My name is Robert, and as always, if you have any questions about this video or any questions about violin playing in general, you can please visit my website at www.haydenmusicacademy.com. Now in today's session we're going to be doing a little bit of review. We're going to review some of the bow strokes and some of the finger exercises we were doing in the last couple of videos. But then we're going to play something that's called an A major scale. Now you don't have to worry about what A major scale means, but you are going to learn how to play it by the end of this video. Now before we begin, let's do a little bit of review. So first of all, let's do some open string up and down bows. So we're going to start on our highest string, which is the open E string. We're going to do a couple of up bows and down bows just to make sure that our bow is staying nice and straight like this. And pause and up. And as I said the last time, very, very useful to practice bow strokes in front of a mirror so that you can watch to make sure that the bow is staying in the right place. Remember, this is our contact point right in between the bridge and the fingerboard, right in the center spot. That's where we want our bow hair to be at all times. And so if you find that it's going crooked as you're going up and down the bow, what's likely happening is that the elbow is leading the motion instead of the wrist. What you want to do is bend the wrist down and flex the wrist up on each bow stroke. So let's do a couple more bow strokes on the E string, keeping that bow straight down the middle, and pause and up bow. Okay, let's do down again and up. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to do a reminder of our finger exercises that we did last time because they're going to be essential for playing our A major scale. So the first finger we're going to use is our first finger, our index finger. Now if you have violin tapes, you're going to put your finger on the first tape on the E string, and we're going to do down bow and up bows with pauses in between each stroke. Okay? Remember not to press down really hard with the finger, and remember not to grip really hard with the left hand. Okay? So here we go. Down bow, first finger, and up, and down, and up. Okay? As we talked about the last time, as you start to put fingers on the string, it is critical that this bow be absolutely straight. If it starts to drift even just a little bit, it's not going to give you the sound that you're looking for. The more taut the string becomes as you start to put more and more fingers on, the less reactive it becomes to the bow. So the bow position has to be absolutely dead center and precise at a perfect perpendicular angle or right angle to the string. Okay, so now we're going to keep our first finger on that first finger tape, and then we're going to put our second finger on the second finger tape. So this is what's called a G sharp. The first note was an F sharp. Now we're going to play a G sharp, and down bow, and up, and down, and up. Okay, make sure to pause in between each one, because when we start to do the fingers in sequence, we're going to want to make sure the fingers are placed before the bow starts to move. Okay? Now we're going to add one more finger, which is our third finger, our ring finger. Now remember, the third finger is going to be a lot closer to the second finger than the second finger was to the first finger. So there's a nice gap in between my first and second fingers. But the third finger is going to squeeze right next to the two. Okay? So let's do down bow on 3, and up, and down, and up. Okay? Like I say, feel free to put a nice healthy pause. We're going to be doing a longer bow stroke later on in the video series, but for right now I want to pause in between each note. Okay? So like I say, be careful that that bow is staying nice and straight. Always a good idea to practice in front of a mirror. Also, like we talked about, keep the fingers as close to the strings as possible. We'll be talking about that a little bit later on in this very same video when we start to play the A major scale. Okay, so now let's start with the exercise actually that we stopped with, I was going to say, in the last video, which is where we're going to play on the E string. We're going to start with the open E with a down bow, and then with each bow stroke we're going to add a finger. Okay? So we're going to start with open E, and then we're going to place the first finger, then the second finger, then the third finger, with a pause in between each bow stroke. So we're going to do down bow open, up bow first finger, down bow second finger, up bow third finger. And make sure the finger is placed before the bow goes, before you start to draw the bow. Let's do it one more time. Same exact thing on the open E string. We're going to do down and. Now place the first finger. Now place the second finger. Now place the third finger. Okay? So, that's part of actually what we call the A major scale, but we're going to put the whole thing together in just a few minutes here. But first, we need another string. We need to start using the A string. And so we practiced the A string in the first couple of videos. Now we're going to do the same thing again. Let's just do a couple of open A bow strokes. No fingers yet, because we want to make sure that we get the bow angle just right so that we're not clipping the wrong string. So the A string is the one right next to our high string, right next to the E string. It's the second one from the end. And let's do down bow and open and down again and up open again. Okay? If you're starting to hear the lower string ring through, that means usually the wrist or the elbow is just a little bit too high. If you start to hear the upper string, the E string ringing through, that means the wrist and the elbow are too low. So practice trying to get that exact angle, and as always, keep that bow smack dab in between the fingerboard and the bridge. That's where your contact point is going to be. Okay? So now we're going to do the same finger exercise that we just did on the E string, but we're going to do it on the A string. So we're going to change and add fingers with each bow stroke. You're going to put the fingers in the exact same place, right on those tapes, in the same positions that we just put them on the E string. And remember to keep that wrist nice and tight and keep those fingers nice and relaxed and curved and hovering right over the strings. Ready? Okay, so let's do down bow A and up bow first finger. And down bow second finger. And up bow third finger. And as we did on the E string, make sure before you move the bow, the next finger is already on the string. That's why we're doing that nice healthy little pause in between each bow stroke. You don't want the bow to move and all of a sudden the finger reacts. You want the finger in place and then the bow moves. Let's do the same thing again on open A and. Now up bow first finger. Now down bow second finger. Now up bow third finger. Okay? So now we're going to play what's called an ascending A major scale. Now don't worry about what the heck that means just yet, because we're going to be getting into all of that stuff a little bit later on. The important thing to know is that, especially if you're going to be using the Suzuki books, as we will be starting in the next video, is that the first pieces in the Suzuki books are all in the key of A major. And so by practicing this scale, you're actually training your fingers to go in the exact same place that they're going to need to go when you start to read sheet music for the first time. And so it's very, very important to practice these scales so that when you have to start reading the sheet music, your fingers know exactly where to go. Okay? So now, to play the A major scale, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start the same exercise we just did on the A string, and then I'm going to move over and repeat it on the E string. Let me demonstrate it once, and then we'll do it together. So first I'm going to start on the A string with an open A, then I'm going to add the first finger, then the second finger, then the third finger. Now I'm going to move over to open E, now first finger, now second finger, now third finger. That's what's called an A major scale. Okay? Now let's try it together. We're going to try it a few times in a row, just going up, ascending A major scale. So we're going to start on the open A string and then do the fingers, and then over to the E string and then do the fingers again. Okay? So down bow, open A, first finger, second finger. Squeeze the three in. Now move over to open E. Now first finger, now second finger, now third finger. Okay, let's do it just one more time because we want to make sure we get these finger placements absolutely dead on precise. Okay, so let's do down bow A. First finger up, second finger down, third finger up, over to open E, first finger up, second finger down, and third finger up. Okay, so that is what's called an ascending A major scale. And so when you're playing in the key of A major and you're playing notes on either of those two strings, those are the finger placements that you're going to use. Okay, now let's do what's called a descending A major scale, which sounds pretty much just like it is. We're going to play the scale backwards. Now this is where it gets a little bit tricky because of when you have to switch over from the E string to the A string. Suddenly you have to move all the fingers really, really quickly to try to get onto the string. So that's where it gets really, really tricky. Let me demonstrate it for you once. So we're going to sort of do the same exercise but completely backwards. We're going to start with all three fingers on the E string and then move backwards. So I'm going to do down bow, third finger. Now up bow second. Now down bow first. Now up bow E. Now here's where it gets tricky because now you're going to get all three fingers to scramble and get onto the A string. So third finger on A. Now second finger. Now first finger. Now open A. Okay? It's always that transition between the two strings that gets a little bit tricky. Now you might say to me, well, I can't quite get all of my fingers to scramble onto the A string. Is it okay if I just try to hit my third finger and then try to get the other fingers later? Do your best to try to get all three fingers to move over from the E to the A when you're going down, because what you want to do is train those fingers to get into place as quickly as possible so that when you have to play a really fast scale, your fingers are going to be able to react that quickly. If your fingers are having to, be a little bit lazy, or if the third finger is okay, but the second finger is not quite there, or the first finger is a little bit slow, that's when it becomes a lot more difficult to try to play faster later on. Besides the fact, we want to train those fingers on where those fingertips are going to be so that eventually you can play without the fingertips, so that the second finger knows exactly where to go. The first finger knows exactly where to go. All the fingers know exactly where to go. Okay? So now let's go backwards. We're going to start at the top of the scale with all three fingers on the E string. Make sure you place them on the tapes. Okay, let's do this nice and slow and easy since this is a little harder than the ascending scale. Okay, so let's start with down bow, third finger. Now lift the third finger up so it's just the second finger and the first finger. Now lift the second finger. Now open E. Now scramble to get those fingers onto the A string. So all three fingers on the A string, third finger. Now lift the 3. Now lift the 2. Now lift the 1. Okay? It's exactly the same scale, it's just in reverse. Now, very, very important as well for being able to play faster later on down the pike. I mean, right now we just played it for the first time. But imagine if you want to play it as fast as I just played it a few seconds ago and I was playing it really, really fast. You'll notice when I lift my fingers off the string, I don't make a big motion to lift them off. Because what if they have to come back in the string really quickly again? All of a sudden, if they're way off to the side, just like we talked about last time with that dartboard analogy, if they're way off to the side, then they have a greater distance to be able to try to get back onto the string. And that does two things. It decreases the accuracy likelihood and makes it far more inconsistent to accurately hit the tape all the time, the further the distance between the tips of the fingers and the string. So you want to keep those fingers as close as possible for accuracy's sake, and you also want to keep them close for speed, so that if you want to play the scale really, really fast someday, then you're able to do that. So lift the fingers up with just barely enough motion. It takes tremendous control to learn this at first, but if you keep practicing it, your fingers will adapt and you will be able to use very little motion as you're lifting the fingers off the string. It takes tremendous control at first then. Okay, let's practice this descending scale at least one more time, if not twice. So let's put all three fingers on the E string. And let's do a down bow. Now lift the 3. Now lift the 2. Now lift the 1. Now move over. Get all 3 fingers on the A string. And now lift the 3. Now lift the 2. Now lift the 1. Okay? Let's just do that one more time just to make sure we have it. And all 3 fingers on the E. Now lift the 3. Now lift the 2. Now lift the 1. Now move over, all 3. Now lift the 3. Now lift the 2. Now lift the 1. Okay? So now we have the ability to play the A major scale going up and to play the A major scale going down. So now what I want to do is put both of them together. I'm going to play the A major scale going up, and then I'm going to play the exact same thing in reverse. Okay? So we're going to wind up repeating that top 3rd finger as we get there. You'll see what I mean in a minute. So let's do it ascending first and then descending. So we're going to start on our open A string, go all the way up to 3rd finger on E, and then we're going to do the exact same thing in reverse. Okay? So let's do down bow on our open A string. 1st finger, 2nd finger, 3rd finger. Move over to open E, 1st finger, 2nd finger, 3rd finger. Now let's play the 3 again. Lift the 3, lift the 2, lift the 1. Move over, lift the 3, lift the 2, lift the 1. Okay? As always, make sure the left wrist is nice and straight. Make sure the fingers are hovered nice and relaxed over the strings. Make sure line up the fingers so that they're ready to pounce over those finger tapes. And especially as you're going down, lift very little with the fingers. Don't make a big motion when you're taking the fingers off of the string. Keep your fingers as close as possible. Let's do it one last time before we wrap up this video. So we're going to do ascending and then descending. One last time. Starting with open A. And up bow 1, 2nd finger, 3rd finger, open E, 1st finger, 2nd finger, 3rd finger. Now let's play 3 again. Lift the 3, lift the 2, lift the 1. All the fingers over, lift the 3, lift the 2, lift the 1. Very, very good. So don't be too discouraged if you find it's very, very hard at first to play an A major scale. Remember, if violin was easy, just about everybody you would ever have met in your entire life would have played it at one time or another. The simple fact is, if it was that easy, just about everybody would be able to play any sort of musical instrument. It just takes tremendous practice. But if you practice this A major scale on your own, practice in front of a mirror, keep working at it, keep fighting to get those fingers under control, it is going to make reading sheet music so much easier. And that's going to be very important for the sessions that are yet to come, because starting in the next video, we're going to start to use Suzuki Book 1. And we're going to start to look at some of the basic sheet music reading that you will have to do going forward in these exercises. Okay? So it's been a pleasure teaching you today. As always, if you have any questions for me, please feel free to email me or visit my website at www.hatedmusicacademy.com. And we'll see you next time for video number 4.